Good evening, everyone. Today's session is on Python, and we will be learning about the different syntax, and the different how to declare a variable, how to use for loops, how to use if-else statements. So that's why I have started with this session because we need to understand how the program flows, how the data is inserted in the program, how we use different syntax, how we use different loops, how we use different decision making systems, right? So let us one by one I'm going to explain you. There are a number of programs that I have taken, and most of the students get confused, or like they are getting a doubt in that particular program. So I will be explaining each and every step in this session. Let's begin with the session. The first program, the very first program when you write in a Python is just using a print statement. You want to print anything, and everybody tries to write the same syntax, that is hello world. So, print is a function, right, that has the starting parenthesis and the ending parenthesis, right? And this function, whatever you write in the print function, would be treated as a message that is to be displayed on the screen. If I'm going to write it here good morning, so that means whatever is written in double quotes or single quotes, that is enclosed in double quotes or single quotes, that is given as an output on the screen. So this is the very first part when you begin with your Python language, and that too is a print function. What is that? Print function. Because in other languages we have printf, or in Java we have println, in C++ we have or in C we have printf. So basically, in Python we have a print function which basically displays the message on the screen, right? So whatever you want to display on the screen, you might be using a print function. Now let us start with the input function also. You are taking the input from the user, like you are taking any value, you are taking any string, you are taking any number, you are taking any floating point number. So all these are a part of input function, right? Now I'm going to give you a detailed part of this. Why? Because most of the students get confused, like uh, why it is taking integer value, why it is not taking a string value, or why it is taking a float value. So we need to understand this concept also. Basically, when we want any input from the user, right, we will be using a function that is called input function. Okay, again I told you it has the parenthesis part, the same as with any other function, right? So here we have declared one variable which is storing the value what is taken as an input. So we have printed on the screen, enter your name. So your name should be in a string. Even if you are entering, enter your age, so it would be, yes, your age is number, but it would be taking it as a string. So by default, when we use input function, it is taking string. The data type of the value is string. If we want to convert it into number, we may be using the conversion part, that is, we may be writing the data type, whatever data type we want, in front of input function, and then we close it. So basically, whenever we want to convert the value that is taken as an input from the user, we may write the respective data type in front of input function, right? Otherwise it would be treated as a string part, right? String value. And then we have taken a string function, we have taken a print function for printing the variable. So here we have not printed the message, we have printed the variable, the value that is stored in that particular variable. So that's why it is not enclosed in double quotes, because we are not printing the message on the screen. What we are printing, whatever the value that is taken here, taken from here, and it is set assigned to this variable, that is basically we are giving as an argument to this print function, right? And like suppose I have taken the input as James, and it would be printing as an output 2 as a James, right? Let's move to the next function. So next function talks about like factorial of a number. Now what is factorial of a number? Suppose I say 3 factorial, right? Now what is the factorial of like 3 factorial would be 3 into 2 into 1. So that's how it works. What is that? 3 into 2 into 1. So the ending part is 1, right? So let us understand the output would be 3 to the 6, 6 1 the 6. So the factorial of 3 would be 6. Now let us start with the function. First of all, we have initialized the value, that is num is equal to 7, right? We have initialized a variable with a value that is 7. So 7 is assigned to the num variable. Now next is to take input from the user. So here if we are taking it as a like we are not taking it as a from the user, we may take it as a num. If we want to take it from the user, what we are going to do is, yes, here it is very much written input function, enter the number. I have already told you why we have put this int in front of this because the input function is giving a string value. We cannot perform manipulations like multiplication on a string value, right? So what you can you have like this a into some name, I would say Manvi. So can you multiply a into Manvi? No, because they both are characters. So we need to have some number kind of thing for multiplication of to perform multiplication operation. That's why if we have taken any number from the user, right? So we have taken suppose any number from the user, and then we have converted it into integer, and then we have assigned to a num variable, right? Now next thing, now this is the variable which is holding the factorial of any number. This is the variable. So why it is initialized it with 1? Because I told you we need to perform till 1, right? Now if it is 0, then your answer would be 0. 0 into any number would be 0. So that's why we have taken it as 1. Now let us see the next part. Check if the number is negative, positive or 0. So let us check out if the number is uh, if the number is less than 0, then sorry, because for negative numbers we don't perform the factorial part. And if the number is equal to 0, then the factorial of 0 would be 1. So the direct message will be printed on the screen. Now whereas if the number is positive, in case the number is positive, then what we are going to do is we are taking it as a for part, for loop. Now for loop we start with the I part. I is starting with what? Till I is starting with 1, and then we have initialized the thing is num plus 1. So num plus 1 is whatever number is holding in this, like whatever your number is, it is num plus 1 because ending part would be treated na. And units, obviously what is the unit increment? That would be in the decreasing order. So if your number is like it should be starting with 1 and then it reaches till like this 3 into 2 into 1. This is how it is going to work, right? Yeah, so it is starting with that part only. Let us do the multiplication part. Whatever you receive in I, you multiply it, and then again we increase the number value, right? We increase the num plus 1. So this is how we can calculate the factorial of a number, and then we store the result in the variable that is factorial, and then we print the factorial of a number here with using the print statement. So how to calculate the factorial of a number? It could be like here we have used the for loop function. We might be using while loop also for calculating the factorial of a number, right? Now let us see another function, another program, that is the year is a leap year or not, right? So we have, like I have told you, we can take it as a number, we can take it as a we can take input from the user as well, right? So here we have taken the year as 2000, right? Because here we have taken it as comment. You may take it as, you can, the user can also input the year, or if you are not making it as a comment, then make this side as a comment, the upper part, and then you can take the input from the user, right? Now let us understand the logic behind it. Divided by 100 means century year, right? If you are dividing by 100, and by 400, like if we are talking about the difference between them, so we may be using the century year, it should be divided by 400, right? That must be a leap year. So how to implement this logic? First of all, for centuries we are checking it, the remainder would be 0 for by 100, for me, for checking the century value, right? And if you are checking the leap year value, like divided by 4, we may be checking it by 400 directly, right? Century years would be 400. So let us see, because divided by 4, we may be taking another thing that could be like this, by 4. Let us move to the first condition first. So we have taken the year. This is the modulus operator, which is basically checks out whether the remainder, the year that is divisible by 400, and the remainder part of this modulus gives you the remainder part, and if it is equal to 0. So this is that kind of situation when this part is equal to 0, and the same with 100 also. If the year modulus means if the remainder part of that year is equal to 0, then we can say that this is a leap year, right? Now if it is, this is one condition, so there are number of conditions in this. This is condition 1, right? What else? Let us see the next part. Not divisible by 100 means not a century year, right? Might be possible the year is not divisible by the century year. It might be possible like it is an year, right? It can be divisible by 4, and then you can get the answer. So here another situation, another condition. First condition is this. Second condition is if your year is having the remainder 0 by dividing the year by 4, right? And the same is for, like the 0 is the year is not, yes, the remainder is not equal to 0 in case if it is divisible by, because it's not a century year, right? So there are two conditions. This is condition 2. If it is divisible by 0 and it is a not century year, then you might be checking both the conditions, like year remainder 100 is not equal to 0, and here we have is year equal to 0. Then you can print the leap year, right? What else in the case if it is not divisible by this condition, that is 400, and not by 4 also, if this is the condition? Now that means if it is not by century year and not by the year also, so that means your year is not a leap year. So in that case you may directly write it down, else no need to check it out, because we have checked both the conditions, right? We have checked both the condition 1 and condition 2. So here we have printed the message, here the year is not a leap year, right? Let's swap the two numbers. This is the main program that we most of the students are facing in the interview also, to swap two values, right? So let us do with this Python also. We will be having a temporary variable for swapping the two values, right? So the two values would be like x is holding the value 5 and y is holding the value 10. Or it might be possible we are not taking it as a assigned value, we might be taking it as a input from the user, right? So if you are taking this, no need to you can just declare it as a comment. If you are taking this part, declare this part as a comment, right? So here we can say that we shift the value of x to what, temp, right? And y value is shifted to x, right? Now just swap it, whatever is x, now we want the temp value, that is the x value should be inserted to y. So this is how we have like swap the values between using two variables. Otherwise, like if I am not going to use the temporary variable, because sometimes this question also be coming in your exam, we don't have to use the third variable, so we might be using the arithmetic operations on the plus minus to get the value, right? And then you just write it down, x value and y value. So here you can take it as a format function, where for just formatting your text, nothing more than that. And then you print the values of x and print the values of y. So you have assigned it x as 5 and y as 10, but at the end we can have x as 10 and y as 5, right? Now let us see another program. The number is even or odd number, right? So we know that the main operator that we are going to use is modulus operator. So this is the percentage, you may say, in mathematics. But here we use it as a modulus operator, which gives the remainder part of any number. If we are like dividing this part, so we might be getting a remainder part, right? Whatever is the remainder, we will be getting the remainder part by using this modulus operator, right? So let us start with the function. We have taken the input from the user, right? And it is stored in the num. Now we are checking it out whether the num modulus 2, because even number we are checking it out, if it is divisible by 2, and the remainder, because this would be giving you the remainder part and the remainder is 0, that means that particular number is even number. Otherwise, this is an if condition, so otherwise it would be falling in. If it is not divisible, if the remainder is not 0, then it would be a odd number, right? So this is how it works, right? So we have taken the input as 43, and then we have checked out 43 is not an even number. So this is how we have, this is the usage of if else statement, right? And the second thing is different operators we have used. Now the most important part, like whenever we have your this thing, multiplication table, we might be facing like what is this, how it is going to happen. So let us start with that. So for iteration part, I have we have already done with the for loop, like how to use for loop in our Python. Let us see, if I have taken a number that is 12, I have assigned a variable. This 12 is assigned to number, and then you might be taking as an input also. You can take it if you are make this line as a comment line, and you can remove the comment from here, right? If you are taking the input from the user. Now the very simplest part is when you have the for loop, right? So you have started with I. Range function basically takes the three arguments, the starting part. So I have started with 1, and ended with, this is the stop part, and the third is your units. So by default units, if you are not giving, if you are not mentioning, it is taken as 1, right? So 11 means the loop is going to run less than 11, that is 10, right? Again, I am repeating because this is the most important point. Most of the students get confused what happens here, why you have written 11. So when we have a range function, this is the starting index, or you may, this is the starting point, and this is -1. So like 11, so 11 minus 1 would be 10, right? And what you are going, what operation you are performing, you are just taking the number, whatever the number you have taken. So here you have taken as 12, 12, and then the first value of I would be 1, right? And then the loop will be incremented, because by default it is incremented by 1 unit. So 12 ones are 12, 12 twos are 24, it is like this. So up to 10 it is going to be printed on the screen. So this is the simplest part, like, but you need to understand the range function before using the for loop, because if you don't understand this range function, your logic would be incorrect, right? Let us see the next program that talks about the Elif statements, and that finds the largest number between three numbers. So we have three numbers as a input numbers, and then we basically check out the result. So here we have assigned 10 to number 1, 14 to number 2, and number 3 is 12, right? Or you may take it, uncomment it, or you may say, you may remove the hash part to compile it, right? And make these lines as comment line, because if you are taking the input from the user, right? Now check out the, yes, now do the comparison. So using comparison operator, greater than and less than operators, you might be checking your answers, right? So if your number 1 is greater than equal to number 2, and again this is a logical operator which you are going to use between two conditions, condition 1 and condition 2. Number 1 is greater than 3 also, this is like that only. Number 1 is checked with number 2 and 3. So number 1 is greater than 2 and number 1 is greater than 3, then obviously number 1 is greatest, or you may say the largest, right? Else if the same condition, number 2 is checked with both the numbers, number 2 is greater than number 1 and number 2 is greater than number 3. So again the second number would be checked with both the numbers, that is number 1 and number 3. And if it is like greatest, then we will be assigning it as greatest number, right? Rest, if these conditions false to false, then we will be saying that number 3 would be greater, right? So using if and elif statements, you can basically use the different things, okay? Do the comparison, you can perform the comparison part as well. So here at the end, whatever the largest number, the variable that is holding the largest number would be stored in a largest. So here you are going to print the largest number, and the largest number would be your number 2, right? And that is 14. Okay, so this is how we check out the conditions and we compare the different values in a program. So and the most important thing, you can take the input from the user, but you need to convert it to a float or a integer, because by default this input function is what, is taking a string value, right? So I hope you have understood all the programs. Let us have one more program, very very important, and like most of the people get confused how to perform the calculation on Armstrong of a number. So what is an Armstrong number? Armstrong number is when you have like 1, 5, 3, right? when you make cube of each digit and you add the cube of these three digits, right, and take one more, that is 3. So if you take out the cube and add summation uh, to this, it would be your real number, it would be your number, your input number, that is equal to 153. So this is the property of Armstrong number. The cube of each digit, the addition of cube of each digit would be equivalent to your actual number, right? So how to find the number is Armstrong or not? Let us check out the conditions. So here we have taken input from the user as number, right? And then we have initialized one variable, that is sum, because we need to, actually what we are, the logic behind this is, we need this digit, we need this digit, and we need to separate digits from the number. So for separating this part, we might be using what? Yes, modulus operator and integer division operator, that is double slash, right? Let us see. While temp is greater than 0, right? So while your number is greater than 0 or your temp is greater than 0, digit may you are storing the remainder part, right? And what you have to do, you have to make the cube of each digits, right? So you are taking the double asterisk for representing the power sign, right? And then you are taking what? Integer division. This is called integer division, to extract the integer division of any number, right? And obviously you are taking one digit, so you will be dividing, you will be taking the division by 10 and you will be taking the remainder by 10 only, right? So if now the number is equal to sum, whatever the sum that is coming under this part, because you are taking the summation of all the digits here, right? So if your actual number, right, if this number is equivalent to this sum, that means your number is Armstrong number. Otherwise it is not an Armstrong number. So this is how we check out the properties of numbers, or like how to you may say, number may say you can extract the digits also. By what? By remainder part and by integer division, right? So this is how we can perform the different functions, how we can use the if else, and you may be using the if else or for loop or even while loop also. Like here we have used while loop, right? So I hope you have understood the different programs that we have discussed just now, and enjoyed the session as well, and understand the different programs, right? Hope you like the session. Thank you.